This artisan forged the supreme armament of all eras for the savior, yet in exchange, he receives misery and treachery. The champion not only slays his sole relative, but also severs his beloved's limb. He swears vengeance. During the realm's grimmest moment, the fabled tool was ultimately unveiled. The savior's blade, birthed from flame and sorcery, anticipated the single fighter, deserving of holding it and shifting the tides of battle. However, a female instantly becomes irate when an observer remarks that it appears to be merely a common blade. She commences clarifying that the steel is shaped from the fable or named orculum. Not only is it remarkably weightless in the grasp of its true owner, but every blow is 10 times more devastating and can even nullify curative spells. She mentions that this is merely the start of the blade's capabilities before showing its maker. The architect reveals himself to be her youth companion, Bill Bark, the identical lad she used to pummel when they were juveniles. Bill shows up clearly shy and states that he solely desires to utilize his talents to deliver harmony to the globe. The savior takes the blade with respect, realizing that not even the imperial smiths operate with such scarce ore. Bill, nevertheless, cautions that the armament's real worth relies on if its wielder can release its buried power. The savior moves nearer, resting a palm on Bill's shoulder, and vows to render him the supreme smith on the whole landmass. Listening to those terms, the protagonist's eyes brims with sparkles and faith. The savior gleams like a holy, moving image. He appreciates him clumsily, viewing himself as merely a humble rural smith. In his private thoughts, he is merely a background figure. Still, he is satisfied realizing his gifts can remain helpful. Bill summons his pal Sepia to converse. He displays a band he made while shaping the savior's blade. Anxiously shaking, he clarifies that the band is also formed of orculum and states it would fit her nicely. He attempts to admit his emotions, but becomes totally mute. Finally, all he succeeds to do is request she take the band as a present. Prior to him handing it over, Sepia softly grasps his hand. She requests Bill to present the band only after the fiend ruler has been vanquished. Her answer leaves him baffled, although he fakes a grin and concurs. Bill tightens his grip, comprehending the real significance beneath her speech. He has forever realized that Sepia adores the savior. Yet, he still elected to risk his opportunity, because she would soon journey far off with him to a location Bill could never attain. With a sad grin, he embraces his destiny and hopes solely for her joy alongside the savior. For winters vanish and reports circulate that the savior's group has finally vanquished the massive terror. Seasons later, Bill toils in the workshop as his uncle asks what rescuing the globe ever achieved. The helper grumbles that they can no longer pay the levies, and that the shop will soon be seized. Annoyed, the uncle tosses a flask at the novice and bellows that the nation is at fault for preferring giant state-controlled factories. Bill requests his uncle to cease complaining, stating the leadership must possess its causes. He continues that merely realizing he aided the savior fuels him with dignity. The helper sneers, noting that the savior is now praised as the Lord Guardian of the realm. Remorse floods the uncle as he states Bill would have possessed a superior existence if he had never accepted the family trade. Bill rejects that notion, claiming it was his private choice, and that he will locate a method to gain funds. As curfew nears under the savior's commands, darkness falls, and the shop grows quiet inside the isolated woods. The next dawn, Bill strolls through the town solo holding a tiny box. He thinks launching a fixed service was a solid scheme until he detects loud yelling from the road. A gathering of traders is arguing for their liberties. Puzzled, Bill questions a walker what is occurring. The male clarifies that the nation will now commerce solely, with huge groups causing disorder. Troops have ringed the mob to maintain calm, and Bill appreciates him for the detail. Still, Bill feels the arguers are senseless, trusting marches will alter nothing. He fears they are gambling their existences, without weighing their kin. Viewing the plight as useless, he rotates away, concluding it has zero to do with him. Then something pulls his focus, and he peers back into the turmoil. His visage shifts instantly when he spots someone he recognizes. His uncle Phil remains among the marchers yelling for traders' rights. Phil also spots Bill and appears equally amazed to view him there. Suddenly, a knight declares that moves will be enacted by command of the Lord Guardian. Military rule is stated instantly, and the troops are ordered to lift their lances. Arms aim ahead as the squad readies to march. Seconds later, the command to strike is issued, and the troops rush. Lacking mercy, the soldiers attack the defenseless mob. Terror grows as folks run, and Bill halts in fear. A splash of ichor darts past his visage, and when he grasps what occurred, he yells in dread, his face stained. Viewing this, Uncle Phil madly bellows for Bill to flee. Finally, Bill wakes from it and clutches his uncle's limb. He drags him along, yelling that he realizes a concealed exit. They sprint into a tight lane, attempting to evade both the turmoil and the chasing wardens. The troops decline to permit anyone to escape, screaming commands as they provide pursuit. One soldier is ordered to hit with total power if required. Without pity, a guard slashes down a running citizen. Bill continues sprinting, chest searing, but he declines to release the box he holds. He shoves further into the dim lane, while Imperial wardens shut him behind him. Thoughts of his sire instructing him during his initial days at the forge rise in his head. Suddenly, the realm around him shifts. The lane changes into shining azure lines, as though everything has transformed into a living design. Every building shows its inner plan to him. His eyes gloss with azure glow, and Bill comprehends he alone can view the realm this fashion. Concentrating, he hunts for an evasion route. A close wall shines crimson, showing a structural flaw. Without pause, Bill draws a mallet from his box and hits the location with flawless aim. A tunnel gapes through the barrier, and everyone hurries through while one runner looks back in doubt. The shattered timber smoked as if burned from inside. The troops persist yelling, commanding the killing of all betrayers. Bill peers back nervously. The soldiers warn the rebels to halt or meet penalty, but Bill dismisses them and starts tallying quietly in his mind. A furious guard yells that they will all hurt. The barrier behind him starts to break like dust. The tally hits 2 as splits stretch wider. The whole build wobbles. The barrier falls totally. The timber frame smashes down onto the chasing troops, leaving them dazed and mixed up, grasping the chance of the turmoil and grit. Bill and the others flee. Finally, they attain the hidden shop deep in the woods. Bill shakes, constantly whispering about what occurred in the town. He drops to the ground in gloom, while Uncle Phil pleads forgiveness. Phil pushes him to settle down and requests him to detail how he managed to rescue them. Still trembling, Bill questions what occurred back there at the march. His uncle confesses he does not realize, but concurs that the Empire's reaction was far too severe. He states that Bill must now grasp how the leadership crushes the frail into the soil. With his hands pushed against the ground, Bill begs his uncle to never take share in marches again. Phil, nevertheless, questions what will result of the nation if everyone ceases fighting. Bill answers that the destiny of the land is the Lord Guardian's duty. He confesses that he is scared because his kin never came back from the battle, and he has already missed Sepia. Phil hears quietly as Bill clarifies that he labors endlessly, so they will not miss the shop. Through drops, Bill questions what he would do if he missed his uncle as well, stating he could not bear that misery. Phil softly rests a hand on his crown and asks pardon for everything. He then drags Bill into a hug, swearing that from now on he will not let him fret anymore. Phil later informs the others that he is departing the group, and they take his choice. Led by his option, the others also move away, unwilling to risk their existences further. Once the stress vanishes, calm finally lands beneath a bright sky. By the next dawn, all the runners are napping peacefully inside the shop. Our hero slowly rises. He parts his eyes, still heavy from the recent turmoil. Nearby, his uncle moves as well and once again asks pardon for the dread he made. East, Bill promises him that he will no longer need to fret about the shop. Bill rests back down, trusting that everything has finally reverted to standard. That peace is broken when the shop gates are rudely kicked wide. In a flash, troops of the Empire race inside, and their leader commands everyone to be captured. Bill is grabbed and blamed of treason against the land, leaving him totally shocked. Everyone is tied and pulled outside, while Bill fights to make logic of what is occurring. It feels incorrect to him, since an assault should have arrived during the darkness. Furthermore, the shop is remote, making it vague how the troops even located them. Suddenly, one of the runners yells that this was not portion of the pact. It is Tom who moves ahead to guard his boss, claiming that Bill never took share in the marches. As they are guided away, Bill finally grasps the reality. He locks his stare on his helper and comprehends that he has been crossed by the soul he relied on most. Tom is vibrating and cannot bring himself to face his master's eyes. Flooded by disgrace with his hands tied, Bill quietly questions why he was crossed. Then he bellows with all his might, asking to know why Tom traded them all out. The helper clarifies that the troops had vowed not to capture Bill under any terms. They had stated Uncle Phil was of no worth to them. Through tears, Tom clarifies that the shop was going to be seized anyway, and that Phil only drank and joined marches. On top of that, the leadership proposed prizes to rats. Tom trusted that if the uncle were taken, the shop could be raised from zero. In the end, he turns away, pleading pardon for his treachery. Some time later, the noise of horns states the coming of someone grand, and Bill is dragged before the Empire's royal hall. Washed up and shaking, He stands as the Lord speaks to him as ally. The Lord Guardian shows himself to be the savior, Oliver Prime, and informs Bill to loose. Bill clumsily answers that it is hard to feel at peace in such a spot. Oliver loses no time and questions if Bill would be prone to enter the people's group. Fearing, Bill falls to the ground, stating himself a loyal fan of the savior. Oliver chuckles and notes that Bill is one of the few who still names him that. He clarifies that Bill's guiltlessness is already known as a viewer proved everything. Bill feels a huge sense of ease and questions who aided clear his title. Oliver then shows that he privately settled the shop's dues, leaving Bill mute. He waves it as a tiny kindness for the male who once rescued mankind. Among the watchers, one male questions why Bill is being handled so well. His pal answers by talking of the three supreme master smiths of the realm. One is the Cyclops of the Fiend Land, another is Vulcanus of the realm of Aveline, and the final is the Golden Palm of the Volteron Empire, known as Midas. He shows that the supreme of them all is Bill Bark, Midas himself, the soul who shaped the Savior's blade. The initial male doubts this, noting that there are more than 20 masters in that realm alone. His pal answers that Bill is modest, but everyone realizes he stands above the remainder. Collecting his bravery, Bill elects to question the Savior something. Oliver grins and informs him to talk freely. Bill clarifies that he has missed link with Sepia and desires to know how she is. At the noise of her title, Oliver's grasp tightens on the seat's rest. Still, he states she is currently on a task and will return to the shop in time. Happy, Bill appreciates him for the report. Bill then shyly brings up one final plea, asking if his uncle can return home with him. Oliver's look turns grave as he questions what Bill would do if it were already too late. Bill is stunned, unable to grasp the meaning. Suddenly, Oliver explodes into laughter, claiming it was only a bad jest. Bill stays mixed up as the entire court links in the laughter. The Lord Guardian soon recovers his calm and admits the jest was an error. He clarifies that while Bill's guiltlessness is shown, Phil's has not yet been proven. Oliver asks pardon and vows to see what can be done. Thankful, Bill continues to view the Savior as a light of faith. From that day on, Bill throws himself into his labor at the shop, waiting for their return. He feels a stab of gloom when Tom vanishes, leaving behind only a note and some funds. Still, Bill carries on, keeping himself active for the sake of his uncle and Sepia. The days drift quickly as he readies gear for Sepia and drink for Phil. Finally, with a wild look, he questions how much time has slid away. One day, a rap breaks the calm at the shop. The guests name themselves as members of the Imperial House, shocking Bill. Without pause, he dashes to the entry filled with joy. He trusts the long-waited second has finally landed, that he will be rejoined with Sepia and Uncle Phil. He pictures asking about her kit and sharing good drink with his uncle. Grinning brightly, Bill opens the entry to welcome them. Instead, he is met with two boxes resting in a dead field. Close by stands a twisted version of Sepia, leaning over one of them, while the other box belongs to Uncle Phil. In that second, the worst day of Bill's life is stamped forever. His realm crashes completely. He notes Sepia and questions what occurred to her limb. Her ghost form appears to be bearing intense hurt and pain until she suddenly drops off the box, completely blind to her setting. Bill questions whether he is dreaming when he views Sepia resting against one of the boxes. He slowly strides toward the timber build, unable to trust his eyes. With drops flowing down his visage, he questions why his uncle is resting there like that. After all, he had even bought a dear drink so they could joy together. All of a sudden, our hero bursts into wild laughter, which quickly shifts into a yell filled with hurt and gloom that rings throughout the room. He keeps yelling, asking to know why this is occurring to him. Pushed by craze, Bill begins shaking the box, begging for him to wake up. The hurt is so crushing that it feels as though his own skin is being torn apart. At that instant, he remembers Oliver's lie about Sepia's task. That fake vow turns his growing rage. He also recalls the vacant promise that the Savior would aid his uncle return. With that, all of his anger finally finds a sharp mark. Falling to his knees, he frees one final yell of pure pain and hate. His eyes shine with power as his hurting finally has somewhere to go. The view shifts to the past when Oliver bids goodbye to our hero. He hands Bill a golden badge as proof that he had been his guest. Oliver clarifies that the badge would permit him to visit the keep or even trade it at the bazaar. He jests that the item is made of solid gold and is worth a great deal of funds. Bill takes the badge happily and vows that one day he will return the kindness. Back in the now, Bill shows the badge to enter the keep, and the guard knows him instantly, wearing a chill look. Bill clarifies that he has come to act care on the Lord Guardian's blade. The guard orders him to wait while his bosses are told. As he waits, Bill grips his box tightly, his stress clearly seen. He begins picturing how a straight fight with the Savior might go. In his thoughts, Bill races toward Oliver in a frantic strike. However, he realizes the odds of beating the strongest male alive are nearly zero. In truth, his chance of win is exactly 0%. In his pictured war, he is beaten easily. After all, our hero is only a smith, not a skilled fighter. Furthermore, the Savior holds the strongest blade ever made, making win impossible. That is why Bill carefully weighs his choices and lands at a simple answer for his payback. It is something only a smith could achieve, and something no one would ever doubt. His scheme is to use his fixed talents to his gain. Because of this, Oliver drops his guard entirely, never sensing any peril. As a result, the most mighty weapon in being ends up in the hands of our hero. With the world's strongest male left open, Bill believes his scheme is perfect. He questions whether he should use the mallet or the Savior's own blade, but Oliver answers that he never desired to be a savior. Puzzled, our hero sneers and questions if Oliver is about to whine about his existence. Oliver then clarifies that he grew cynical because no single soul can rescue everyone. Bill hits his palm on the board, claiming that Oliver delivered calm to the globe. In the finish, the Savior concurs that he did rescue the globe from ruin. However, he asks what might have occurred if the Dark Lord's troops had never attacked. If there had never been a necessity to rescue the globe, Oliver clarifies that the reply had been plain all along. They only needed to turn so mighty that no one would ever risk facing them. If the land had been mighty enough, the battle would never have occurred. That was the result he found after beating the Dark Lord. Bill stays quiet as the Savior starts to show his real aims. His reply was plain. He trusted that he alone should lead the nation forever. To do this, he broke the bad richness and looked for fresh and skilled folks to toughen the empire. Oliver lifts his palms and states that he will not cease until there is no one left who can oppose them. He then questions Bill if he grasps why he was taken to this spot, and instead rushes the Savior with all his might. He yells that if Oliver is done speaking, then it is his moment to perish. Although shocked by the fast strike, the Savior displays no worry. He calmly aims a digit at Bill and says it is a true pity. In the next second, Oliver shoots a mystic bolt that stabs Bill's shoulder. Huge hurt fills his frame as the power throws him flying backward. When he smashes the earth, the Savior's blade slides from his grip and drops to the ground while he yells in pain. Listening to the cry, the wardens run into the room and spot Bill resting on the earth. They fast question whether the Lord Guardian is safe, but he waves it off and says it was nothing grave. Without pause, Bill is captured for trying to strike Oliver Prime. Our hero then questions how long Oliver had realized about his scheme for payback. The Savior answers that it was the incorrect query to ask at that time. Oliver answers that it was because Bill was highly skilled and gifted. He then shows that he desired Bill to turn into one of his nearest friends. The Savior holds out his palm and informs him that the chance is still open. Ringed by wardens, Bill questions if Oliver is real and says he will choose only after asking one ending query. Oliver finds this funny, but concurs to answer truly. With a hard look, Bill questions what occurred to Sepia. He desires to realize why she ended up in such a bad and hopeless state. Oliver clarifies that she was a rare fighter who beat 200,000 fiends. However, during the ending war against the Dark Lord, she lost her limb. Even so, she did not drop into gloom, and together they managed to beat the huge evil. After a long and savage war, calm finally returned to the globe. That calm did not endure long. Mankind soon began warring among itself. Chow was the only one left behind, trapped in a chair. While her pals continued to war, she was left feeling worthless and lone. Taken by loneliness, she drank until sadness caused her to drop onto the ground. While to become useful again, she turned to something banned. Through the use of black magic, she was able to return to the battleground. Oliver states that Bill has already viewed the side results of that power. The Savior then questions whether Bill has reached a choice about his offer. Bill skips the offer and says his query still has not been answered. He asks to realize why Oliver did not stay by Sepia's side to aid her. She was his friend, yet he let her drop into such a sad state. Bill yells that she lost her limb warring beside him to rescue the globe. He adds that as Lord Guardian, Oliver had the might and weight to aid her. The picture of Sepia running gladly flies through Bill's mind. He says that she needed Oliver more than anyone else. Oliver answers by blaming Bill of trying to move the guilt onto him. He yells that if Bill truly cared, he should have gone to aid her himself. While Oliver was out rescuing the globe, Bill had been safely laboring in the shop. Aiming at him, Oliver asks how he risks to teach him. The savior names Bill a craven for leaving his duties, and then falls quiet, waiting for a reply. Oliver suddenly starts to laugh meanly, and says the word craven again. In a fast move, he cuts Bill's limb. Bill stares in shock at the empty space, where his arm once was. Oliver shouts that he bears no duty for anything that has no worth to him. He adds that Bill's existence was saved only out of respect for his past works. Bill's cut arm hits the ground as blood flows, and hurt takes him. He yells with all his might as Oliver turns away. The savior exits the room, leaving Bill to hurt alone. Some time later, Bill Old Forge comes into view, now left totally empty, and knock rings at the entry, as someone calls out asking if anyone is inside without warning. The gate opens, and Bill stands there with a blank dead stare. The guest turns out to be Sarah, a prior member of the hero group, and an old pal of Bill. After listening to everything that occurred, she comes to grasp the destiny of her pal. Sarah joyfully notes that the land is grown under all of her rule, but her remark bugs Bill. She then grumbles that her visit was useless, since he can no longer labor as a smith. Even with his arm in such a sad state, Bill refuses to yield. He claims that he is still able of working, yet he denies to shape a blade or handle any fixes for her. At that point, Sarah rests down and says it is bad because she had planned to inform him the reality about Sepia. Hearing this, Bill changes his stance and concurs to take the task, but only this once. Happy with his reply, she questions how much he plans to ask for the blade. Bill answers that the cost will be the price of the stuff and the full tale of Sepia. Sarah takes the terms, and the two of them sit down to converse. While Bill labors, Sarah clarifies that the savior changed the entire tale to aid himself. She then questions whether Bill truly trusts Sepia would have failed to dodge the Dark Lord strike. After all, Sepia was the second quickest member of the group, beat only by Sarah herself. According to her, the Dark Lord was fast but not overly mighty. Nearby, Sepia was playing with the band Bill had made for her long ago. In the end, Sarah reveals that Sepia did not fail to miss the blow. She freely chose not to. She gave herself to guard the savior from the Dark Lord's strike. The reality of the battleground was very different from what had been told. In truth, it was Oliver who walked to Sepia and asked for her aid during the war. He needed Win in order to become the Lord Guardian, but the state was turning against him. Sepia, however, denies his plea, trusting she could not be of any use in her condition. She shows him her hurt limb and says she cannot give anything. Oliver steps nearer and tells her not to worry herself with such a small issue. He then shows a grimoire they had found from Fiend Land. Sepia is scared when she realizes it is a text of banned black magic. She argues that such power should never be used by anyone. Oliver tightens his fists, clearly mad with her reply. Taken with rage, he throws the text at her. The savior yells that they are friends and that she has no right to deny his plea. He then moves nearer and begins speaking about their tie, saying that he had always viewed her as more than just a fellow fighter. CIA is left totally mute by Oliver's sudden talk. Realizing what he has said, he fast brushes it off. As he turns to leave, Sepia stays quiet, deep in thought. Moments later, she calls out and asks him to wait. With will in her eyes, Sepia looks at Oliver and makes her choice. Seeing this, the savior lets out a mean smile, knowing his scheme had worked. Sarah had been hiding nearby, silently watching everything happen, and she heard Sepia agree to the plan. Closed by, Sepia is suddenly scared by something and drops an item onto the ground. It is the auriculum band that Bill had made for her with great care. The band rolls across the earth and finally comes to rest near Bill's boot. In that second, Bill grasps the reality. He walks toward her and asks if he can view her hand for a second. Puzzled but willing, Sepia holds out her hand, and Bill gently places the band on her digit. He tells her that this way she will not lose it again. However, the band instantly slides off Sias' digit and falls away. Bill finds this odd, as the band no longer fits her at all. He clearly recalls shaping it to match CPA's hand perfectly, yet now it easily slides down her digit. Suddenly, he drops the band and begins to feel extremely sick. Bill drops to the earth, questioning why this is occurring to him. Tears flow from his eyes and soak into the dust beneath him. He tightens his fist and cries out, taken by rage and hurt. All of his hurting bursts out in a scream, filled with gloom. He slams his fist into the earth, releasing all the anger he has been holding inside. As he lies there, he starts to wonder when his existence began to fall apart. He asks himself if it started when he took an apprentice into his shop. In the end, he questions whether the real error was handing the blade over to the savior. Bill trusts that everything he did only proved how weak he truly was. He feels totally helpless, stretched out on the ground, with no might left to rise. All of a sudden, he sees a vision of a female smiling softly at him. It is Sepia who comes nearer and gently touches his face with warmth and care. Tears continue to flow from Bill's eyes as he wonders what is occurring. He questions whether she has come to aid him after all that has occurred. Guilt fills him as he realizes he never acted when she needed him the most. Resolving to change his fate, Bill grabs his mallet with his remaining hand and promises Sepia that he will fix every error he has made. With a single mighty strike, he begins shaping a fresh weapon, pouring all of his might into the labor. Energy flows through his body as he labors tirelessly in the shop without rest. He swears that he will set everything right no matter what lies ahead. Sarah then says her goodbye, mentioning that she will return in 2 weeks to take the blade. Before leaving, she admits that she also carries guilt for failing to stop Oliver. Bill remains silent as she prepares to go. She tells him that if he ever needs aid, he only has to call for her, promising that she will aid him at least once. With that, she departs. Sometime later, a huge burst of light explodes from the forge. The hero emerges changed, now bearing a steel arm, and he swears that his payback will be total and firm. The view shifts to a group of pupils running through a forest. Their leader asks Hans to brief everyone on the task for the day. Hans explains that reports have come in about blasts occurring nearby village. The leader is happy with the reply, and Hans continues outlining the state. He stresses that their main goal is scanning, not combat. The group agrees, then splits up to begin searching the area. Before long, they reach the site where the blasts occurred and start checking the surroundings for proof. One pupil points out that there is no trace of powder in the air. Another notes that the spread dust is fresh, meaning the doer cannot be far away. A girl then raises the chance of magic travel. Hans answers that the spot is too close to the village for escape magic to be used safely. The leader praises everyone for their sharp eyes and says they are heading in the right path. Suddenly, something draws their attention, and the group carefully moves to check. They hide themselves among the trees and quietly watch what is occurring. What they view is our hero practicing blade skills. He appears to fight with controlling the steel, using only one hand. Bill keeps training, though his moves are clumsy and rough. Hans sneers, grumbling that the mark is nothing more than a green swordsman. He looks sad, admitting that he had hoped to find a mighty mage instead. Hans remarks that Bill's fighting skill is no better than that of a road thug. The girl agrees, saying that all 3 of them are not even needed to handle him. Another pupil nods in agreement and readies to launch a surprise strike. Hans questions whether their task has now shifted from scanning to taking. The leader explains that without hard proof, he cannot officially label Bill a crook. However, he then produces a wanted paper bearing the hero's face. Reading it aloud, he notes that Bill is a smith with several odd remarks attached to his name. The leader is stunned to see that Bill is blamed of attempting to strike the Lord Guardian. He instantly orders Group A to prepare for a capture plan. He stresses that capture is best, but everyone grasps the meaning. One pupil knows that if capturing him fails, ending the mark is allowed. Hans begins to rethink, realizing that anyone blamed of attacking the Lord Guardian must be extremely risky. The girl studies herself and insists that they should go all out from the very start. With that choice made, the 3 pupils rush toward the hero with full force. Working together, they overwhelm Bill and knock him to the earth with ease. Bill is left stunned, unable to grasp what just occurred. Hans is worried by how easily Bill was beaten and starts doubting that he is truly the crook they are looking for. The group briefly considers that Bill might simply be a spy connected to the case. Hans grows quiet, weighing the state and deciding how to act. He walks forward and tosses Bill's blade onto the earth beside him. Then he tells Bill to pick it up and face death like a true fighter. Wearing a smug grin, Hans claims this is an act of pity from the next savior himself. Bill answers with a glare. Clearly annoyed by the boy's pride, he grabs his blade and tells Hans that he has totally missed the state. Since they struck him, without warning, Bill decides that talk is useless. Hans instructs him to watch carefully, stating that he is about to show proper blade skill. He begins by explaining how to judge the gap between oneself and a foe before striking. With fast footwork, Hans prepares his next move, then lunges forward at huge speed in a single smooth motion. Bill is shocked, unable to even see the steel as it flashes dangerously close to his neck. Hans continues his talk, noting that a strike should flow without break. He instantly proves his point with another mighty move. Stepping in even closer, he finishes the chain and ends by slamming a heavy kick straight into the hero. At last, Bill feels the blow land and cries out in pain as Hans's strike connects. The sheer force sends Bill flying across the battleground. As he lies there, he hears Hans mock him, naming his effort shameful. With a cold look, Hans demands to know how Bill plans to repay all the time he has wasted. At the same time, the leader of the group senses that something about the state is off. Their task was to check the blasts reported near the village, and the broken trees and spread rocks clearly proved that mighty blasts had taken place. Because of this, they assumed the doer had to be a mage or someone using powder. Instead, all they found was a green swordsman with no trace of mana or the smell of powder lying on the earth. The hero pleads with Hans to stop. Hans responds by asking what exactly he is supposed to stop, and continues pressing his attack. It is then that the leader realizes that if no one else is involved, Bill's true weapon must be something totally different. In panic, Bill stretches out his hand and tells them to end it. His weapon was not a blade at all, but something nearer to a cannon. Without warning, a massive burst of red energy blows and slams into one of the pupils. A vision appears of a hand bound by chains snapping apart under the huge power. Hans screams and grabs his ear, blaming Bill of being a craven for hiding his weapon. Bill fires back, questioning what kind of fighter could so casually toss his own blade. He sneers, wondering aloud if Hans even deserves to be named a fighter anymore. Those words ignite Hans's fury. Enraged by the insult, he swears to tear out Bill's mouth along with the rest of him. Completely trapped, Bill squeezes his eyes shut, bracing himself for the final strike. Before the blow can land, steel clashes in midair. The group leader has stepped in at the last second, blocking Hans' attack. Hans shouts at his teacher. Stunned by the sudden break, the leader, however, praises Bill's plan, noting how effective it was against them. It carried enough crushing force to beat its mark in a single attack. However, at the most critical instant, the young trainee paused. By shutting his eyes in terror, he missed the chance to finish Hans. The captain clarifies that this doubt shows Bill has never ended a life, and that no matter how intense the fight becomes, murdering someone is never easy. One of the pupils grumbles that Hans was on the edge of failure, but Hans barks at him to be quiet. The commander then commands everyone to settle down and watch the main character carefully. He asks if Bill is suitable as a practice partner for them. Hans objects, stating they should take this opportunity to train. But the master notes that from the very beginning, Bill displayed no aggression toward them. Without real hostility, a genuine battle is unachievable. With that, the captain orders Squad 3 of Group A to bring their training talismans. Bill watches in bewilderment, uncertain of their goal. Addressing him as a convict, the leader asks if Bill is familiar with the Hero Academy syllabus. He clarifies that one necessary course trains students to destroy evil without doubt. For this goal, they utilize a live criminal, allowing the pupils to get used to gore and shrieks. At this, several students identify the name Bill Bark and remember something vital. The name written on their practice task was Phil Bark, the protagonist's uncle. Realizing his family is being disrespected, Bill lets out a scream of wild fury. The commander verifies his hunch with a serious look, yet remarks that Bill's determination is still unfinished. He can observe that the protagonist remains tortured and is not yet ready to combat. Then Bill tightens his grip as realization finally hits him. Looking at the students, he concludes that beating Oliver will demand an extreme option. He decides that he must erase everything the hero created, including the pupils themselves. With tears running down his face and a crazy grin stretching, he accepts his new black goal. Our main character stands up and requests them to wait for a second before starting their assault. He then questions whether they desire a real target for combat practice. Bill clarifies that he is a metalsmith and that battling him in his current condition would not be good training for the team. Puzzled, the master asks what he is attempting to suggest with all of this. The protagonist replies that he only requires a little bit of time. He asks for a brief pause to arm himself and vows that he will honestly attempt to beat them. The other pupils, however, think he is looking for an opportunity to flee and push the leader to end him right away. The protagonist says again the words "run away" with obvious contempt and disrespect. He questions if they really think he would retreat. Seeing his determination, the captain consents to the young man's plea. He asks how much time the setup will need. Bill replies that 1 hour will be sufficient, and the master commands him to go and get ready. Still, he cautions Bill that he already understands what will occur if he neglects to come back on time. One of the pupils teases they will give his corpse to the swine, lifting a chunk of flesh to highlight his crude comedy. As time passes, the boy states that the main character has already fled. The girl grumbles about missing credit for the task, but the captain tells them to hold on a little longer, getting anxious from the wait. The girl stretches in weariness. Suddenly, a steel arm falls from the heavens, racing toward one of the pupils. The item is grabbed in midair, leaving the girl totally puzzled about what just happened. Moments later, a huge blazing blast bursts in the middle of the fighting ground. Through the fumes, a metal hand shapes and grabs onto the girl's hand in the air. She yells in horror as the steel arm connected to a chain drags toward her. Right afterward, Bill shows up on the battlefield sporting a huge, frightening set of armor, a single blue eye shining. He coolly states that there are now only 35 digits remaining. Furious, one of the pupils screams for the others to slay Bill in the most painful way imaginable. The leftover two students sprint at the protagonist with all their might. They try a coordinated attack. Yet Bill appears completely unmoved. With a tough look, he readies himself for a real fight. Pulling his blade, he takes a strong combat position against the young warriors. The captain then asks aloud how one should handle a rival covered in such thick plating. He answers himself, remarking that the connections are the weak spots, and one of the pupils instantly strikes. The boy succeeds to hit near a joint in the protagonist's suit. Since the links are created of cloth or thin chains, they persistently aim at these exposed spots, striking again and again. Even so, not even the connections permit the sword to puncture Bill's suit. The student is left shocked, having never anticipated such incredible toughness. Annoyed, the girl yells that the match is finished and rushes ahead. She shouts at Bill to perish as she places all her strength into the strike, throwing a metal sphere toward him. Bill answers, saying she is too kind-hearted for holding back instead of striking genuinely. The master calls Bill a dimwit for still controlling himself when he possessed the chance to strike a finishing hit. Angry, the girl curses at the protagonist. The captain then states that unlike him, his pupils never hold back, and with a timed attack, they finally succeeded to slam Bill to the floor. One of the students stomps his foot down onto Bill's spine with all his power. The girl commands the rest to step on him, as well resolved to hold him tightly to the earth. Soon they start trampling ruthlessly on our protagonist's suit. Still, uncertainties emerge among them, as they ask if their hits are doing anything at all. One pupil then proposes breaking the joints of Bill's suit instead. Our main character mocks, remarking that those who wish to be heroes should not require 3 people to team up on one foe. The student ignores this and keeps striking, holding Bill from the rear. Another pupil abruptly states that it is only practice and tells Bill not to take it to heart. Bill raises his head and glares at them with eyes full of loathing and resentment. Even as he rests on the dirt, one student says again he should not take it to heart. Immediately after, Bill lifts his middle digit straight in the girl's face. At that moment, Bill's suit starts to glow as an inside device triggers. Without notice, pointed steel spikes explode outward from every section of his plating. The students gripping him are pierced and scream out in pain, completely caught unawares. Bill coolly remarks that aiming for the joints was something he had already predicted. He shifts his head toward the master and asks when he intends to finally intervene. The captain points behind him, and the surviving students sprint toward our protagonist with maximum power. Annoyed, Bill prepares himself to battle the academy pupils. However, their actions are fast, and they dodge his hits with effortlessness. Bill slashes again, but one of the students jumps cleanly over him. Irritation appears across Bill's face as he grumbles that his blade cannot touch them. He asks how he is expected to get vengeance if he cannot even land a strike on a simple student. He then asks how his sword will ever touch the hero Oliver one day. Taking a gasp, he analyzes his feelings and tells himself not to hurry. His eyes shine as he thinks that combat is like shaping metal in a fire. You cannot form steel with a single hammer strike. You hit once, then again with everything you possess, and then hit again until the metal finally curves into the shape you want. He proceeds fighting and guarding non-stop, never permitting himself a second of break. Power gathers with every impact, and his blade starts to glimmer with the fierce light. Our main character holds the tool tightly, patiently watching for the ideal chance. At last, he releases a blow that shoots a huge impact wave rippling through the area. One student laughs, claiming it was nothing more than a fortunate scratch. Another boy then asks Hans and Lin how they should bring the battle to a close. Bill cuts in, stating he already possesses a scheme to end everything clearly. Moments later, several items fire out from his suit toward the party. They fly through the sky and spread across the fighting ground, creating a circle around the pupils. In the next second, the items open into a web that traps Lin, catching her totally. Bill states that not even a monster's brute power could rip that net apart. One of the pupils yells that if they neglect to return soon, the school will dispatch backup. Grinning with confidence, he says that time supports them and that Bill has no opportunity. In reply, Bill cuts through the web easily and asks if they truly thought he had missed that chance. He then questions if they comprehend why he paused until now to trigger the snare. The reality is that Bill required combat training as well, and he appreciates them for supplying it. A student begs for pity, but Bill icily answers that he will start by removing fingers. Freaking out, the boy yells for Bill to take away his hand at once. Hopeless, he screams out to his captain for aid. The master coolly answers that the pupil has already cleared the exam. Immediately afterward, the boy is quieted by a fast, accurate blow. Blood sprays across Bill's suit as he observes without emotion. The captain then confronts our protagonist and tells him that he too has cleared the exam. Wearing a mad smile, he commends Bill on his superior showing in the fight. It becomes apparent that all the other pupils have also been caught in the web. Lin releases a shriek full of sheer horror when she views what has occurred to her peers. Another boy yells that the leader has gone mad, unable to understand the scenario. Before he can respond further, he is hit from the rear by his own master, who does not even give him a look. The student is left stunned, unable to believe his teacher has deceived him. Without pause or pity, the captain ends the lives of his own pupils. Afterward, he tells them to relax at last, adding that he desires they will be reborn into a world with better grown-ups. Bill remains on guard, holding his blade tightly and declining to drop it for even a second. Finally, the master tells him to quit being so nervous, remarking that the fight is already done. He says again that Bill has cleared the exam. Bill is rattled as he could not see or comprehend what had just happened. He asks why the teacher would butcher his own pupils, and asks how someone like that could even be battled. Still, he readies himself, realizing the clash is not genuinely finished yet. The captain states there has been a confusion, and claims that the kids warrant that destiny. He adds that finishing things rapidly was nicer than letting them hurt any longer. There's a weird and scary confidence shown in his eyes as he talks. Suddenly, Bill releasing a fast and crushing blow, but the master notes that he had already predicted that attack style. Bill hits again, but the man pushes him to here before proceeding. He discloses that he arrived here specifically in hunt of the protagonist. He then asks Bill whether he holds hate toward the Lord Defender, the hero Oliver Prime, saying that he experiences the same emotion and utilizes a surprise action to snare Bill. He proposes that they should converse and fix everything once and for all. The captain holds Bill with a firm gaze, clearly having lost his tolerance. Despite this, the protagonist appears distracted, reaching a shaking hand while wheezing for air. The man states that there is no other option, and a bright glow fills the zone. Walking to Bill, he says that this terrible destiny is something Bill brought upon himself. He then strikes a destroying hit, sending blood flying through the sky. The view abruptly changes as the protagonist jumps awake, yelling from a terrible nightmare. He finds himself resting on a timber bed inside a strange room. Feeling his face, he asks if he is really alive. He glances around in bewilderment, asking where he is and what occurred to his suit. He grips a writing tool sitting on the desk beside the bed. Bill unlocks the entry, gripping the pen tightly. He walks ahead with care, conscious that peril could be close. He looks through a thin gap to watch what is occurring outside. There he views the captain circled by several people, while someone asks about a key. Close by, another man sips endlessly and screams out for Draco to fetch him more drink. A young male shows Sepia with a gem, and she smiles with joy. Clearly charmed, she holds the stone softly in her hands. At the view of this, Bill freezes in surprise and tightens the pen, realizing that the girl is truly Sepia. Suddenly, a voice declares he is awake, and Bill is shocked from the rear. His eyes expand in horror as he comprehends that he has been discovered. Moving on impulse, he strikes out with the pen in a hopeless assault. The party responds in panic, yelling that their chief has been attacked. However, Orient coolly says that everything is okay and commands everyone to sit back down. Smiling, he clarifies that he succeeded to stop the blow, even though the pen still punctured him. Annoyed, a red-haired boy barks at Bill, asking if he desires to get injured and whether he even knows who the chief is. Orient fast interrupts, calming him and clarifying that Bill must be puzzled and scared by everything he has undergone. He then asks Bill if he can pardon him for transporting Sepia along without consent. At last, the captain presents himself as Orient and goes directly to the primary subject. Orient then asks Bill to link with his group to destroy the Lord Defender. Bill says the question again, and the master answers that his skills would be a precious resource. Despite this, our protagonist declines the proposal instantly, without any doubt, because his only goal in life is to personally bring a close to the Lord Defender. Orient hears coolly a slight grin on his face and says he comprehends Bill's wish for vengeance. However, he adds that beating someone who possesses total strength will not be a simple chore. Because of this, Orient proposes a brief partnership, suggesting that they work together only until the hero Oliver is beaten. He promises Bill that after that he will be allowed to move however he desires. The whole party turns their focus to Bill, quietly watching for his reply. Instead of answering, our protagonist hits Orient's hand away with huge power. His rage spilling over, he asks whether he should ever labor alongside the people liable for harming his uncle. With hate flaming in his eyes, he commands them all to exit at once, cautioning that he will strike if they do not. One boy claims everything was a confusion, but Bill does not acknowledge him. The captain walks ahead and asks whether vengeance alone will genuinely be sufficient. Bill tries to debate, yet Orient cuts him before he can finish talking. He then asks if Bill genuinely thinks he can confront the hero by himself. Our protagonist's frame shakes as he replies that he must do it with his own hands. The sensation of blood gradually falling from his hand as the pain of loss eats away at him from the interior. Overcome, he screams out in agony and falls to the floor in total misery. Kneeling there, Bill asks what road he should pick to get his vengeance. He grieves the loss of his arm Sepia and the passing of his Uncle Phil. Another boy walks in and states that it's sufficient, remarking that Bill has already made his point plain. At that instant, a young man nears and notes that it is a joy to finally see him in person. Bill gazes up at him, puzzled by everything that is occurring. His look stays on the young man's hands, and he asks what occurred to his fingers. The young man presents himself as Edric and proposes that Bill hear the remainder of the tale. The scene changes to a jail where many arms are spread across the dirt. A warden screams at the convicts, commanding them to lift the weapons and get ready for battle. A man states that anyone who can beat the Count in a fight will gain their liberty. One of the convicts objects, stating they are normal folks with no understanding of combat. He clarifies that they only desired their voices to be heard. Yet the Count displays no care. Ignoring the beg, the man commands the bound captives to be brought ahead. To the convicts' terror, their own kin members are shown as the captives. The Count stands and says that he values only his allies because they are powerful. He further clarifies that before lifting weapons, they were no different from the prisoners themselves. They had once been ranchers, woodworkers, and traders. But he says the history no longer matters to him. He will offer them a motive and begins to torment a female captive in clear view of all. Fueled by despair, the woman's partner runs at the Count to shield her. In answer, the Count pulls the female before him, using her as a human guard to stop the strike. The male halts in terror, watching his wife kept captive before his eyes. Without doubt, the Count drives his steel through her spine, ending her in front of her partner, blood dirtying his sword. He icily asks the rest why they remain standing there doing zilch. At last, overcome by fury, the captives sprint at the Count with all they possess. The Count observes them run toward him. He throws his steel into the sky, preparing himself for a real fight. In a flash, a slaughter happens, and everyone is beaten. In the conclusion, the male states that frailty is a vice, and the cause they all met their demise. Count Zahir, once the weapon master of the heroes group, now leads the standard military. His power is total. He guards the protector's land so well that the defender himself never has to step out as long as Zahir stays in command. The rebel army confronts a barrier of steel. Bill asks if they can truly beat Zahir's troops. Hearing this, the red-haired boy chuckles at Bill, naming him a fool. He states that a direct crash would mean instant death for them. The boy then asks Bill if he even understands. Bill scans the area and sees that they are in a cellar, but the red-haired boy interrupts him mid-phrase and fixes him, stating that they are in a buried tunnel. Then comes the larger shock. It is a buried city, a huge hidden urban area linked to every edge of the realm. This is the rebellion's secret tool, a labyrinth beneath the soil, a city that can hit anywhere, anytime. The captain states that they will utilize the city's tubes to track down Zahir. The view moves to the practice area. Bill concentrates with his spirit in mind, and with his total power, he strikes the puppet. Sadly, the timber blade rebounds and soars out of his grip. Without doubt, the captain states that Bill possesses no flair at all. The captain then asks Bill to link with the rebel squad, stating that if he does, he will instruct him in sword methods. He further clarifies that Bill's hunger will cost him his existence. Bill stands there quietly and grabs his blade, without offering any reason to the captain. Suddenly, Bill asks the captain about how to collect mana. The captain acts not to know about mana, and tells Bill that he should request a mage instead, not him. But Bill shoots back, stating that he viewed the captain utilizing mana while slaying his pupil. The captain stands shocked, eyes expanded in doubt, and asks if Bill can truly view mana. Suddenly, the captain begins chuckling like a lunatic, commending Bill. He notes that Bill lacks sword skill, but that it matters not because he can. Full of glee, he turns back and clarifies that it will be valuable teaching Bill sword skill. Carrying the huge beast, he states that he is quite occupied right now, and that he will be going to the hero school. He adds that he is a mole after all. Meanwhile, the view moves to Count Zahir's thief, where the Empire's war engine grinds into action. A troop captain gives sharp commands. All staff divide into 3 teams and hunt. Use signal magic instantly upon finding any odd person. The troops reply in one voice, understood. Their order is a sharp difference to the rebels. The Empire is structured, efficient, and harsh, but the rebels understand how to hit where it hurts. The counterplan is shown. A rebel states that they will kill the foe's spirit through guerrilla combat, and so it starts. Teams are trapped in the tubes and erased completely. Signal magic fails, and terror grows. The buried captains Draco and Mog of the Earth guide the strikes. Their hits are fast and cruel. Chaos rules among the Imperial forces. Soldiers yell out asking where the foes disappeared, to only for them to show up with deadly aim. The tubes become a nightmare fight, ground-eating squads whole. Amid the mess, the rookie snares prove fatal. One team is erased, and experts begin to recognize his value. One expert notes that the trap the rookie placed is stunning. Another grants that they were told to keep a close watch on this rookie, and now they can see why. The rebels tease the troops, telling them to drop their arms and remove their gear. Suddenly, the gray-haired boy views a tower-built man who appears like he cares about nothing. The blonde moves ahead, stating that he desires to close this bloodshed peacefully. Suddenly, another ally yells for him to remain back. When they turn back, the giant man is already pointing at his head. With a simple hit, the knight slices the boy down like a tree limb. The ally and Bill are shocked, not knowing what just occurred. The blonde yells too, ready for battle, warning them that they're engaging a beast and that simple ruses will not work on him. The knight gazes at them as if he is a beast gazing at its food. Bill fast takes his stance and notes that the knight's mana is on par with Barhan's the captain, or even taller. A huge dark shape stands over a downed soldier, while the rest can only gaze in shocked doubt at his crushing vibe. From a distance, the female captain views the slaughter happen, worry etched deep into her face. One look is enough to tell her the fact. That huge frame, that crazy oversized blade. Her dreads are proven. It is Qasim, the famous right-hand man of the tyrant Zahir, a living sign of brute force. The captain realizes instantly that engaging him head-on would be nothing short of death. With their current power, her whole force would be butchered. Below, her troops are already being sliced down one after another. Yet gloom does not eat her. Instead, her eyes sharpen. With will, she barks out an order without doubt. Split left and right. Flank shape. The forces move instantly, placing total faith in her order. Boots rumble across the fight ground as the troops split into two teams, dust rising as they sprint. The battle grows as they swarm Qasim from both sides, trying to bury him beneath pure counts. The scheme becomes clear. By striking from the blind zone, they push Qasim to constantly shift his focus, limiting his sight and reactions. And in that brief second of break, she strikes. The captain throws herself into the sky, utilizing a downed soldier's frame as a step. She leaps toward Qasim, blade ready. But the killer responds instantly, swinging his tool with scary force. The blow sends her soaring and breaks her dagger on touch. Still, her hit connects, just enough not to hurt him, but to make the gap she requires. With fire in her eyes, she yells. She sends a sign. The captain has purposely created space between herself and the huge chaos. Bill, who had been lying in wait, lifts his arm. A tool mounted on it begins to shine, burning with intense heat. The view cuts to an earlier second inside a shop. Bill stands beside a master builder, voicing a long-held query. While talking about explosive shells, he asks why mana is not put directly into the rounds. The seasoned engineer beside him hears carefully. Bakar, captain of the cannon engineers, clarifies the matter. Explosive dust is far too fine and shaky. Unlike other arms, it cannot safely bear direct mana infusion. While theoretically possible, he clarifies doing so would demand perfect rule over endless factors. Humidity, heat, air pressure far beyond what their current tech can handle. Bakar ends firmly. With their gear, it cannot be done no matter who tries it. If someone truly could manage such a deed, they would have to be a god. Back in the now, Bill grins. He proves the impossible wrong with two simple words. Fire boom. A fire-type grenade shoots from his arm-mounted gun, streaking straight toward Qasim. Upon hit, a huge blast bursts, covering Qasim in roaring flames. The shock wave tears through the fight ground, throwing debris in every direction. The captain and her aide Edwin gaze in doubt at the sheer killing power, but their ease is short-lived. As the smoke clears, Qasim steps ahead unhurt. Edwin barely manages to yell a warning before Qasim surges ahead. In a blur of motion, Qasim delivers a crushing kick that sends Edwin flying. Bill reacts instantly. He activates Ice Boom. A second grenade fires, releasing freezing energy that crashes into Qasim. Ice spreads, instantly locking him in place mid-charge. His angry look is frozen within a solid crystal shell, but it does not last. With an annoyed roar, Qasim flexes his monster strength and breaks the ice from within. The second he breaks free, he charges straight at Bill. Bill scans the scene calmly. His arms were rushed. Against a foe like Qasim, their raw power is still lacking. Even so, Bill does not retreat. As he readies another round, the captain yells urgently, "Edwin, to guard Bill." Despite his wounds, Edwin obeys without doubt. He and the captain rush ahead, placing themselves directly between Qasim and Bill. They know the fact. The captain closes in, but Qasim does not even recognize her. His gaze remains locked on Bill alone. Her look hardens. She is too late. Switching plans instantly. She slams her palm into the dirt. The earth beneath Qasim fails without warning. The ground gives way, and his charge is abruptly stopped as he falls into a pit trap. Before anyone can respond, another figure drops into the fight ground, landing confidently, as laughter bursts from his mouth. Bill turns toward the newcomer, momentarily stunned. This is Draco. A small creature named Mog sits on his shoulder as he walks ahead proudly. So this is the famous rookie. It seems he is nothing grand, he scoffs. The others feel instant ease at his arrival, knowing him as Orion's genius. The captain, however, remains careful. Don't lower your guard, Draco. That's Qasim Zahir's right-hand man, captain of the Knights. Draco halts in shock, but instantly changes into wild glee. He laughs, stating he has caught someone huge. Mog cackles alongside him as Draco revels in imagined glory, but the next second breaks his confidence. Qasim leaps out of the pit with scary ease. Draco's eyes go wide, shocked, thinking, what kind of frame is that? Qasim crashes down like a meteor. The impact lets loose a violent shock wave that throws everyone back. You're annoying me, Qasim, his voice dripping with hate. Dark energy swirls around him as his killing intent locks onto Draco. I want to kill you quickly, Qasim states. It'll break your legs first, then it'll grind every bone in your body to dust. As he moves to attack, Bill readies a third grenade glowing with golden lightning. Before he can fire, Draco pulls him aside, narrowly dodging Qasim's strike. Draco snaps at Bill, stating the protagonist is mad for trying to fire from that close. Draco stares at him. Bill continues, they work. Fire boom and ice boom were not failures. Draco sweats, confused and angry. Enough nonsense. Leave this to me. Saying, he charges ahead wildly. Mog leaps from his shoulder, landing beside Bill and drawing a glowing circle beneath his feet. Bill looks up, startled. Everyone get away from me, Draco yells. I'll handle him. Qasim sneers. Even together you would fail, and you challenge me alone. You are too young to understand your limits. One is enough, Draco replies, spinning his shovel. Then he slams it into the ground and shouts, hell pit. The earth explodes open. A huge chasm swallows Qasim whole, while Draco stands safely atop a pillar. Qasim falls into darkness, roaring in rage. He states he will just climb back up. The walls churn and seal, trapping him deep. Below, Draco pants, grinning. It worked. Seeing everyone retreat, he turns to leave, then stops. Bill is still standing there. Draco yells at Bill, stating he built an escape tunnel for them and that the magic dirt will not last long. I hear you, Bill replies quietly. Suddenly there is no sign of Qasim inside the hole. Draco becomes confused. A furious roar bursts from below. Qasim climbs out, wrapped in a sinister blue aura stronger than before. Draco tells Bill to quickly run, but Bill stays calm. His eyes blaze blue as mono-seeing triggers. Qasim becomes a storm of chaotic energy in his vision. Bill tracks every movement. As Qasim lunges, Bill activates Thunderboom. Lightning tears through Qasim's chest, blasting him off the cliff into the void. Qasim stares at the hole in his chest, utterly unable to understand what just occurred. Qasim reels backward from the hit. Just as it appears he will lose his footing, he forcefully pushes off the cliff wall. In the next heartbeat, he launches himself into the sky, soaring upward with explosive strength as his weapon swings toward Bill. Bill barely has time to react, his eyes widening in shock at the brute's unexpected speed. Qasim bellows that he will grind them into dust and surges ahead, delivering a crushing blow aimed straight at Bill. The weapon cuts through empty space. A violent shock wave ripples outward, rattling the air itself. Qasim stiffens, stunned by the failure of his strike. When he looks down, he sees a gaping pit where Bill had been standing moments earlier. His body begins to shake as blind fury overtakes him. At the same time, Bill's red-haired companion, who had just pulled him out of harm's way, rushes over in stress. Draco shouts, wildly calling Bill insane and asking whether he really needs to keep showing off. Bill pays him no heed, but Draco keeps yelling, telling him to stop messing around and retreat so they can regroup, insisting that at their current strength, they have no chance of winning. Inside Bill's mind, a plan is already taking shape. He concludes that their mana stone reserves must be increased. His thoughts race as he considers using troll blood as a catalyst combined with a compact mana binder to compress the mana and drastically raise its release density. Back on the fight ground, Qasim throws his head back and roars in rage, swinging his weapon in every direction as he howls for them to come out. Meanwhile, Bill and Draco retreat into the shadows, disappearing into the dark. Bill knows this fight was not enough, but he silently swears that the next encounter will be different. His eyes harden with resolve as he finishes the thought. The next time they meet, he will definitely barbecue him. Later at their base, the Resistance captain recognizes their efforts, stating that both Bill and Draco performed well. Everyone gathers around a large map. As the captain reviews the battle, he admits that Qasim's sudden arrival caused heavy losses, but they narrowly avoided complete ruin. With a nod, he offers his thanks to both of them. Draco casually throws an arm around Bill's shoulders, but Bill merely scoffs, clearly unimpressed by the praise. Getting straight to the point, Bill turns to the captain and asks what the next move is. The captain chuckles, telling him not to rush as he was just about to explain. He motions toward the map and introduces the first phase of the operation, the Shadow Scout Unit. The captain explains that large numbers are unnecessary. Their real objective is psychological war, keeping the foe in constant fear by making attacks unpredictable in both time and location. He places a marker on the map to outline the first step. They will strike once in the eastern forest, As he speaks, a scene flashes of their forces ambushing enemy troops in the dark woods, plunging the area into chaos. Next, he sets down a second marker. Then they hit from the north, he announces, describing the following stage of the coordinated assault. Action is accompanied by a brutal visual. A soldier lets out a scream as he is cut down, collapsing to the ground, a grim example of the havoc caused by the planned guerrilla strikes. The captain then reveals the most critical element of the psychological tactic. One enemy soldier will be deliberately allowed to escape. Below, a terrified figure is shown sprinting through the forest, desperate to survive. With a cold expression, the captain explains that this lone survivor becomes the spark that spreads fear throughout the enemy forces. The strategy unfolds exactly as intended. Within the fortress, soldiers whisper nervously in the middle of the night, passing along the news. The 7th platoon was hit as well. The rumor spread uncontrollably, racing through the ranks like wildfire. A hushed soldier mutters that only a man named Damien barely managed to return alive, concluding that patrol duty has become a living nightmare, all because of those damn mole bastards. The captain's voiceover explains their thinking. To the soldiers, the wall represents absolute safety. The underground assault unit begins moving. Draco appears with a self-assured grin, arms folded clearly. Above ground, panic erupts as soldiers feel violent tremors beneath their feet. They shout warnings, claiming it must be an earthquake. They have no idea that an underground tunnel has already breached the interior of the fortress. The ground explodes as Draco's unit bursts upward, catching the enemy utterly unprepared. From below, Draco taunts the terrified soldiers, his face stretched into a cruel, sadistic smile, as he asks how they are supposed to sleep now that the chaos. The visuals show another flawless ambush. A lone soldier cries out before being cut down in the darkness. The plan continues without mercy. Another piece is placed on the map, and next they strike from the south below. Yet another corpse lies motionless on the ground. The unseen assaults never stop, slowly wearing down the defenders.
And that's a wrap for today's recap, but trust me, there's so much more to come. The next chapters are packed with even more twists, and I can't wait to dive into them with you. Comment below if you want part 2. Your thoughts mean everything, and we'll make it happen together. If you're enjoying the journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. We're pouring our heart into every video, improving day by day to give you the best experience. Your support really helps, and a like makes sure this video reaches more people. Let's grow this community together. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.